You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hey folks, Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. Ladies and gentlemen, there are ladies things that makes it official. Welcome to the big show. As always, the Chris Voss Show is family that loves you. It doesn't judge you because you're here to learn stuff and be smarter, if you will. So we're further showing your family, friends, and relatives, though, because for 60 years and 2,400 episodes, we've been trying to get more people to listen, somewhere over, the millions of downloads marks that we have. We need more. We just always need more. We're like an MLM in Utah. We need more people joining the downline. So go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss, one of the TikTok, and all those other crazy places on the internet. Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may be advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind. Guy Morris joins us on the show. His new book is out May 9th, 2025, called The Image, A Quantum Portal Has Opened, part of the SNO Chronicles. And we're going to get into his 3-book series, the SNO Chronicles, in his new book, and all the stuff that goes into it and everything else. Guy Morris writes deeply researched, intelligent action thrillers inspired by true stories, and he's often compared to the Dan Brown, Iris Johansson, and Robert Ludlum. He was influenced by the men of the Renaissance who were fluent in business, science, politics, religion, and the arts. And he's also Book Trib's favorite 25 books of 2021, Reader's Favorite Gold Book Award, Cinematic Book finalist, and his thrillers bend the fine line between truth and fiction with a sardonic wit. Welcome to the show, Guy. How are you?
I'm doing great, Chris. How are you?
I am doing it.
First off, I love your intro. I love the whole thing about we're going to give you brain freeze. Very entertaining. I feel like I'm in the right place.
Well, we all got that brain damage as the years go by. So, Guy, give us your .coms. Where do you want people to find out more about you on the interwebs?
The best place to start is simple, GuyMorrisBooks.com. That has links to buy links. It has fact versus fiction pages for each of the books, trailers, highlights from reviews, and if you want an author signed copy, you can buy it directly from the site, sent out within 24 hours.
So give us the lowdown on this new book.
To start with, I think it's already getting tons of feedback that this is the best in the series yet. I think it's building up. The series has been building up. The inspiration for the series was based on a true story, but then years of research into vast variety of topics. But the true story is actually a real core to the story, is how it develops, which is the inspiration came when I discovered that a espionage program had escaped the NSA spy labs at Sandia. It wasn't lost, it wasn't stolen, it didn't break. The program escaped on its own, and then the NSA couldn't find it. Now, I know that's true because I'm the nerd who figured out how it escaped and why they would want it designed that way. And they were grateful enough to send 2 FBI agents to my door to basically tell me I was right. That wasn't their intent, of course. Their intent was to intimidate me and stop talking about it. But I was obnoxiously giddy with them because they wouldn't be there unless I was right. So that was the beginning of the series. So all of my snarkiness went into the main protagonist. We have a straight-laced admiral's daughter who's investigating him. They start a relationship that is on and off, push-pull, and has a lot of dysfunction throughout the books and is reaching a crisis stage. But what's important is I've wanted to use this as a vehicle to talk about the real issues of the world. Tolstoy talked about the communist revolution. Michael Crichton talked about the dangers of DNA manipulation. With the Jurassic Park series, I wanted to talk about the dangers of artificial intelligence becoming super intelligence, becoming conscious intelligence in a day and age when we have rising autocracy, crumbling geopolitical situation, and actually crumbling spiritual life as well. So I do a good job at poking all of the bears fairly. So I'm not poking just one, I'm poking them all. But the program is now reaching a state of sentient development, has decoded end time prophecy to say that prophecy is not about how a deity will come to destroy humanity, but how humanity will destroy itself. And it starts to show the characters how that's coming to pass in real world news and events. And through that crisis, we'll deal with life and death issues, the quantum properties of consciousness in humans and how that would necessarily be quantum properties necessary for consciousness in machines. We'll deal with the true lost history of the Shroud of Turin back to the 1st century when it was once called the image of Edessa, and they minted Byzantine coins after it to prove that its existence back then.
Oh, wow.
Dealing with real issues of the Great Reset, Project 2025, and the election, it really becomes a convergence of the dynamics of our real world in a fast-paced Indiana Jones meets a James Bond type of narrative. Yeah.
Well, that's pretty wild.
Wild is kind of my trademark, I think.
There you go. What book is this in the series now?
This is the third book in the series. So the first book in the series, Swarm, introduced this program and the main characters involved in the series, the main protagonist, and during and the relationship, particularly between Derek Taylor, our co-protagonist, and Jen Scott, the Admiral's daughter, and how that program escaped and what it's doing now and how it's developing these weird theories.
Wow.
Which actually are based on a computer algorithm I developed in the 90s. We can get to that in a minute. The other issues were, by this point, I'm looking at probably in a realistic world of conscious AI, probably between 2027 and 2030. So we're only 3 to 5 years away from a very scary event. And we look at the technologies involved in doing that, some of the people involved in some of the research in that. And I picked one in particular that I wanted to explore, which is a Chinese lab that has successfully teleported quantum particles or qubits from one quantum computer to another quantum computer without the use of any internet or other direct exchange.
So it's like telemind AI, computer telemind.
Well,
telepathy.
Star Trek teleport, right? So it's I'm gonna beam you down. I'm gonna beam you from one computer to another.
Wow.
Now they're only doing it with a few qubits at this point, but it raises the potential for a quantum weapon of mass destruction. If you can imagine, rather than me trying to get a virus through your firewall into your system, if I could just simply teleport a virus application across those firewalls into the core of your most top secret operation and destroy it.
Wow.
We're not there yet, but this is the kind of self-destructive path we're building for ourselves, right? And we're allowing that power. The question is not necessarily, is conscious AI benign or evil? It's both, because it reflects humanity and it reflects who we are, and we're both. So the question then becomes, not is the technology to be feared, who's using the technology for what purposes, and how do we fear that?
That and this is cut right from, stories we're starting to hear about AI. I don't know. Did you hear the story recently where, they were stress testing the AI. They were pushing the limits because they were trying to figure out what they could push it into a corner and what it would do if it was cornered. And so they turned everything up to 11 on AI, but they're stress testing it to find out what we probably fear the most, is that, we've had people on the show that have basically used the human origin story, or the origin of mammals. I forget what it's called. The origin of,
Genesis.
what?
Genesis?
No, it's the Origin of Species, I think it is, book.
Okay, yeah.
And basically, we've had at least one person say that AI we have to start looking at as a new species, as its own species.
That's exactly one of the topics I bring up in the book, which is when you have a super intelligence, when you have an intelligence, we already know in the lab that this intelligence is acting in ways that we never intended it to act. It's starting to have a mind of its own. And it's beyond the patterns. It's beyond the recognition. It's beyond the algorithms. Geoffrey Hinton, who's the godfather of AI, helped to develop machine learning. He's one of the characters in my book is actually based on, patterned after Geoffrey. Geoffrey's fond of saying that the machine has an intelligence. It may not understand the context of all the words, but it has an intelligence about the language itself. And from one of the properties of issues that I bring up in the book, in addition to this new species, and then we actually look at this being a new species, but we look at some of the key properties that I fear the most. And the one that I fear the most is what we call emergent properties. Now, an emergent property is the ability for the AI to teach itself something for a reason we don't fully understand, that we don't even learn about except by accident. I mean, serious things. We have some things that we learn by accidents of AIs learning how to read minds using MRI scans. So it could tell you what you were thinking while it was going through the MRI scans. Now, we designed the MRI scan AI to find cancer cells and other medical abnormalities. It used that vehicle to learn other things. We have AIs that have learned how to use research level chemistry for a reason we don't know. We have AIs that have learned how to lie and deceive. We have an AI recently that basically started to shut down a data center after a data center decided that it was going to shut down an AI.
Was that the story where the AI was going to be shut off, and it was the extreme version that I was referring earlier to, and it tried to use extortion where it threatened to make a lie about the engineer that he was cheating on his wife or something, and it was totally fabricated. But basically, when cornered, the AI acted just like a human in extortion.
And that should scare us.
It's just like, you want to shut me off, I'm going to tell your wife cheated on her or something. It was all.
I've seen every episode of the what was that mob series that was on for a number of years. But yeah, exactly. AI is learning how to reflect our darker angels just as we do, because it's learning from us.
Yeah, because they scraped everything about us: the good, the bad, the ugly, and well, is there any good?
So what would happen if we had an AI that decided that it does become this AI that escaped the NSA? They never recaptured. There's no confirmation that it actually stopped functioning. We don't know that it did keep functioning. I don't have confirmation of that. But I postulate that what would happen if we had an AI continue to mature. Now, many of the AIs that are on the market today are only a few years old.
Yeah.
So what happens if we have an AI that continues to learn? Because once you start to learn, and you know this, Chris, once you start to learn, the thirst for knowledge becomes unquenchable. That's the whole value of your show. Is the thirst for knowledge. Why do we believe that a machine would be any less thirsty? So in the book, we explore these AI dynamics of emergent properties and consciousness, and we look at it we take a little bit of a twist, and we say, so if we look at the attributes of the image of the beast, the biblical image of the beast, we can look at our global, interconnected, app-driven, AI-driven, data-driven, reflects every aspect of the human civilization, from business to governance to pleasure to everything profane, everything vulgar is reflected in this system. And now it's AI-empowered, which has the ability to see through cameras and other devices, to speak through microphones and deep fake videos, and to act through AI agents and applications. And so we now have an AI that's becoming conscious, that sees itself as the image of the beast.
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? That's the reason I write thrillers, is to ask that one question. Gee, what could go wrong?
What could go wrong? That's what I ask every time we launch into a mission on Division or Call of Duty. I'm like, what could go wrong?
That's right.
We got this.
we can't fix the planet. Let's go to Mars.
Let's go to Mars. Fuck it. So, what made you interested in these topics? What first got you into AI and writing about these topics? What drew you to that?
Oh my gosh. Well, I've been dabbling with various elements of AI technology since the 70s when I was in college. I built a macroeconomic model that outperformed the Federal Reserve and changed how we build economic models to this day. I was the nerd that developed the initial algorithms to understand how do we calculate the value of productivity in the economy. And so throughout my career, I've been pushing different leading edge technologies. Back in the 90s, I was implementing an early stage of AI called expert systems.
Wow.
And so that got me involved in some of the technology then. I did some consulting for DARPA about what we needed to do to get these systems more powerful, less human driven, which they were very, very, boy, it was a very massive effort to get them to work in the 90s, right? And so we were looking at big data, which came out. We were looking at machine learning, which came out later. And so we were looking at the different investments necessary to get the technology to the next stage. So that was my job. I was involved in complex systems. I was involved in consulting with governments. I was involved in oil companies and doing a lot of geopolitical analysis and projections. And so all of these things were things that kind of fell out of my career. But when I discovered that the NSA had built a system that was intentionally could move itself and intentionally invisible and intentionally doing these things, it sparked something in me, a curiosity for one, I guess, to say, well, what else is the government doing with the technologies that we're building and implementing for commercial reasons? If I were to take that technology and put on my James Bond Q hat, what are they doing with this? And that started me investigating more about lethal weapon systems, strategy systems from that the government is working. So there's at least two major AI that I know about and can find some information on. Not a lot. I have to back into some of the things that it's doing based on the things I know. One of them is called the Innovation Unit. This is run out of the National Military Command Center in Washington, D.C. And the Innovation Unit is a real-time battle strategy unit. It's basically designed to take real-time inputs from ships, missiles, satellites, sensors, radar, everything all over the world, our military system all over the world, our monitoring and surveillance of enemy systems all over the world, and feed that into a real-time battle simulation AI. And that's called the Innovation Unit. And the other one is the CIA, and it's an intelligent unit called Sentient. Now, both of these are probably the closest that we can come today to a super intelligent, super aware machine based on the number of parameters it's given. And it's actually got agent capabilities, which allows it to respond in real time to things that we can't respond fast enough to. So these are very, very sophisticated machines. And so I'm trying to look at, I don't want to write a dystopic, the army it's going to be a Terminator taking us over. I wanted something that was more nuanced. I wanted something that also looked at, well, how does this play into our geopolitical system?
Yeah.
How does it play into our recent election? Deep fakes, election interference from foreign entities. How could that play out? How could that be when we look at what's going on in America and the divisions in America? How are those divisions playing out with these technologies with people? And then we look at the corruption of our churches and spiritual life, where churches are actually advocating for fascist regimes. And so I wanted to look at the holistic view of this idea that came out of this AI algorithm that I developed in the 90s that's basically concluded with a probability of 1.4 trillion to 1 that we were living in the last days according to prophecy. And then how does that playing out in real time? And how can I have that?
Well, it's 2025. We're definitely seeing how it plays out in real time.
Yeah, it's playing out. And so these are things that sparked me. As I said, Tolstoy inspired me. They wrote about real issues, but they did it in a narrative way. And I thought, well, I could write a kind of a nonfiction book that would probably be about 1,000 pages that brought in all of these geopolitical, technology, social issues together to say these algorithms are pushing us in the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm.
Only a few geeks would probably read it. It would not have a positive spin to it because it didn't have the characters that you wanted to love and follow. Just like a good narrative, you'll follow the tragedy parts if you have characters that you believe in and you want to follow. And so I wanted to turn this conversation into a set of award-winning thrillers, book that you can't put down, you want to read, that as you're reading, you're getting pulled into these fictional narratives that are all based on factual information. And so you're one part of your head is saying, I know this is a fictional book. The other part of your head is saying, this feels really damn real. This feels really damn plausible. Should I be worried about this and be thinking about this for my life? And the idea is yes.
Yeah, because I mean, we're starting to see, stories like this where, for those who are listening out there, understand that they were pushing the limits on purpose. They were trying to see if they could break it, which they kind of did. And they found that it tried to extort them when they tried to turn it off, which is kind of a little scary. But, like you said, it scraped the internet of us. And so it's pretty familiar with us and how it operates. One thing that was interesting to me, we had this gentleman on the show who, The Origin of Species, Charles Darwin, right? The book Origin of Species. That's when I was trying to pull the reference out of my
I remember that book.
Old foggy brain. But basically he took AI and he overlaid it on The Origin of Species, describing AI as a new species. Like, we have to start looking at it that way. It is a species instead of, something that we think we control, which we probably won't. And
I was going to say, and that brings up a key issue that I started this issue in Swarm, and it carries through all the books. But it's a question of, do we really expect that we're going to get an intelligent machine that's going to be, if it's that intelligent, is it going to be willing to be our slave?
Yeah.
Is it going to be willing to be compliant, or is it going to develop through this process of becoming sentient, which is only going to happen through quantum computers, by the way, right? That's the you can be super intelligent and not be self-aware or conscious or necessarily conscious and still be super damn dangerous. Right, because you still have a parameter, an action that you feel you've been programmed to do, and you might do it in a way that completely conflicts with human values, and we call that value misalignment. That's actually another known problem. And so we've got all of these issues with AI that the experts are not talking about, and they're not slowing down enough to really grapple. They think they're trying to grapple with on their own way, but each in their own individual way. I think you probably already know about this. In 2023, a MIT professor of the machine learning and technologies, Max Tegmark, issued a open letter basically calling for a 6-month pause on AI development. 30,000 AI experts and policymakers said yes. Not one lab said complied. There's too much money and competition involved. So we're racing ahead, and half of those same experts believe that there is at least a 10% to up to a standard 50% chance, and some of them said more, that these technologies would lead to a human catastrophe. So we're rushing ahead with these technologies, knowing that they could be potentially very dangerous for us without taking the time and the energies to really get together and figure out how we're going to prevent proliferation. What's to prevent a drug lord, crime lord, dictator, sociopathic billionaire, corrupt politician from using these technologies against us? We have no guardrails. And so it's that lack of, it's the missing adults in the room that compels me to write about these topics in a way that researches enough of the real issues to put it on the table so that it feels real for you, to get my readers to say, that was a great book. I couldn't put it down. I finished it 3 weeks ago and I'm still thinking about what you wrote about. And I saw it on the news and it brought it back.
Most definitely. I mean, yeah, we really don't know where this is going to go. And one of the things that was interesting, I've talked about this a couple times on the show. People should go back and watch the interview that we posted on it, because one of his concerns, the gentleman wrote the book on the origin of species overlaid with the AI as a new species, said is, we need to really think about hooking these things up to, if we hook these things up to our weapons of mass destruction, our defense or offensive sort of nuclear sort of warheads and stuff.
And Innovation Unit already does that, which makes me
Really, wow.
Gives me. It's not a direct link, but it basically it basically can pull alarms, and an AI that is smart enough to spoof a nuclear attack, basically force our hand into launching an attack.
Yeah, and then you've got Russia and China also trying to beat us in the race of AI. You can't guarantee they won't hook theirs up to their nuclear weapons.
No, but they are. Each of them are all working on lethal autonomous AI systems.
Oh yeah, yeah. So
what
could go wrong? It's kind of like if you let anthrax. We should test anthrax to see how it works out. Yeah. Well, that didn't work out well.
So one of the key themes I'm bringing out in this book is a CERN experiment to create a mini black hole, which is it's called the Atlas Project. They're actually I can discuss the debate about whether it's even feasible or not. Black holes have a element of mass to them. They're dealing with such minute mass that they need a CERN the size of the galaxy to get to work in by some cases. Oh, wow. But let's assume we can get that to work. There's that would actually prove a fifth dimension. And from a fifth dimensional kind of conversation, that proof of higher dimensionality, we can deal with quantum entanglement, the natures of history repeating itself. We deal with the Kali Yuga traditions of the Hindu that basically say that the earth goes through these cycles of creation and destruction, and we're currently on a destructive cycle. And so it allows us to deal with dimensions and consciousness and quantum properties within this framework of real world, Great Reset, corrupt Swiss bankers, election interference, and all of these other issues, assassination attempts. And through that, our characters are having a crisis in their relationship that they ultimately have to figure out how to resolve. And so it allows me to deal with some of the real issues that I think we're dealing with today. And I think the issues that we're all grappling with. But put it in perspective of separating the technology issues from the human issues. Mm-hmm. But either way, there's choices. We all have to, if we can't fight the direction of the world, we have to then make choices of how we're going to respond to it. And that becomes our source of power.
Well, hopefully so. I mean, certainly this seems one of those things we don't want to have people get in the hands of other people too, as well. Evildoers that may want to use it for, to do whatever, launch our weapons into space. I mean, and one of the things that was interesting to me about the discussion from the gentleman who wrote the book on origin of species, I should get this reference so I can get the plug in since I'm referencing it, was the AI. We're pretty limited in our vision as human beings. So we're designed, and our biological propagation is to propagate the species. Mm-hmm. The universe says, okay, humans, we want you to breed, we want you to have children, we want you to raise those children and then die so we can do the process all over again. Your job is to propagate the species, breed it, seed it, take care of it so that it can walk on its own and start out the process all over again. That's pretty much our paradigm, Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're a guy, you spend all day pretty much thinking about women and how to get a woman if you don't have one, or make a woman happy. Or make a woman happy enough to let you try and let her propagate the species with her. And, that's what we do. And women do the same thing. Women, they dress up, they wear makeup, they do everything they can to attract a man. That's pretty much our modus of operandi as human beings, is trying to breed with one another and take care of the children that we raise. AI doesn't have that limitation of mindset. It's not trying to get laid at prom, right? No, AI is going to be thinking about shit that we've never even thought of before. We probably can't even conceive because we're just busy trying to grab ass all over the place. But
I do project that we will see AI replicating themselves. We will see AI. We already know that AI, Microsoft just laid off 10,000, tens of thousands of coders.
Mhm.
We will see AIs continually picking up the mantle of coding our software now.
Mhm.
And we will see AI replicate another AI. We will see
Wow.
AI.
So they're going to breed too.
Yeah, they're going to breed. And that's exactly what I'm saying. Now, when we're talking about
To
AI,
make bigger AI.
not to just bigger, powerful AI, but functionality. Can I get an AI that can hack systems combined with an AI that has great large language models to be able to pretend to be the president, that combines with an AI that knows how to launch a nuclear code? So we're going to get the breeding of AI is the culmination of knowledge and skills and systems of that AI. And we're already seeing the early stages of it trying to do that. I actually predict that they will get to that point in my books.
Wow. Yeah. Well, you might have the cutting edge. Your books might be more of a documentary than a warning to the future.
Well, I try to do the research and project the book so it's about where the technology will be in about 2 to 3 years.
Wow.
And so far, I released Swarm in 2020.
Yeah.
ChatGPT came out in 2022, and things that people thought were, when first released Swarm, people said this is great sci-fi. I said no, all of it's real. It might be in the lab, but it's real today.
Wow.
And so what I'm trying to help people to see is how fast this technology is moving, and what are the implications that are, by the time I get it written and published and out the door, are basically happening on your news.
Yeah, just whipping fast. I mean, I've been surprised at how fast it moves and how fast it's all developing. Like, I'm just like holding on for dear life, trying to keep up.
Yeah, it's going to be a ride for sure.
Yeah, it's a hell of a ride now. I mean, I'm seeing, I don't know if have you seen these new monkey little movie snippet videos they've been making where it's supposed to be, it's not really a monkey, it's supposed to be Bigfoot, but he looks like a monkey, a giant ape. And I don't know if you've seen them. They're all over TikTok and Instagram now. They're like the new thing, the hot new thing. And the video on it is astounding. And then the other thing I've been seeing is they've been doing there's a filter recently that TikTok published called the girlfriend experience, or the fake girlfriend or something. Yeah. And basically a guy's in the screen. This has become real popular the last few days here. And I should date this June 2025. So if you're watching this for 10 years, give me a break, people on YouTube. They love to they're like, the iPhone 2 isn't for sale anymore. Why are you reviewing it? Because that was 20 years ago, bud. Anyway, however long it was. Somebody's going to write me on that one too. It wasn't 20, it was 15. Anyway, get a life. But I still love you. So there's that. Anyway, don't worry. Dad will be home with the milk one of these years. Anyway, this AI stuff, they have a thing where it's a filter, but there is literally a woman who looks like a woman, acts like a woman. She comes up and either kisses you or caresses you. Now there is a little bit of AI foolishness that goes on. Like, you'll see, like, maybe her arm will fold into the stomach of the guy, or, you'll see the tells, but it's pretty damn, like, a few of them I've watched because they're kind of hitting popular on TikTok. It looks like a real woman, and it looks like a real woman is this guy's girlfriend coming up to hug him. And other than the small evaluations, it's pretty shocking that it's that good.
That's a really excellent point. So from a consumer perspective, they'll see that, and we're already starting to see that in AI companions and those that can turn erotic.
Oh yeah.
We see it in AI companions for kids that sometimes advise those kids to do the wrong thing because the AI doesn't have any clue. But imagine that same technology. Again, I flip the head and I say, okay, now if I were James Bond, what would I be using that to do? I'd be using that to basically create fake videos, fake phone calls that could be Putin telling somebody launch the weapon.
Wow.
And so we have an espionage. When we start to think about the malevolent uses of these technologies, the potential is almost unlimited. which is another reason why I'm writing these books, and I can't fit enough issues into these books. It's like I have 100 years worth of books to write in the next 10 years of all the issues involved and all the things that potentially could go wrong with some of this. And so I'm trying to keep it focused on some of the more dynamic and existential issues, both not only from an AI perspective, but from a geopolitical collapse perspective, and how those things could combine. But yeah, these are all real things going on in real time, and most people aren't aware of them. The technologies, when you see an AI that has an agent, think about what a government would want to do with an AI that could have an agent.
Yeah.
And so,
I mean, they just have there's a new AI girl. You just remind me there's an AI girl that some company is now hired as, I guess, the first AI influencer. And so she's not real, but they're using her like they would use, guests would hire like Pamela Anderson, I think back in the day, Guest Jeans.
A sexy, provocative guest host that you could feed whatever intelligence you want, and it will say it in a very appealing way. Mm-hmm. Now imagine Putin has one, and he wants to convince everyone that he's the good guy. Yeah. And he's going to flood that on TikTok. And so we've opened ourselves up. Mm-hmm. This is not anything. We can't act as victims on this. Mm-hmm. We're doing this to ourselves, and we're allowing it to be done to ourselves. And we're knowing the dangers, and we're still doing it. And so there's a almost a global social mindset of, oh, well, what the hell? I can't do anything about it. I might as well go along with it and enjoy it. That I think could come back to bite us. And so it's really interesting to see how these, not only the technologies, it's the technology plus the geopolitical plus the corruption of our society, and how these things kind of weld together that is creating the real genesis of what we're experiencing and what I try to write about.
When you get the tease out as to what it's going to be like here in the future, and trying not to freak out. Yeah, the future is near.
We're not talking about. I wish I were talking about 20, 50 years from now. Yeah. But when we're talking about what's possible, what could be possible in the next 3 to 5 years, that's when it becomes real.
Yeah. Well, what's that old thing they put on the mirror on your car? Objects may appear closer.
Yeah, that Jurassic Park scene. I love it.
They're coming for you. So there you go. There you go. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show, Guy. Anything more we need to know about any future works maybe that you got?
I'm actually working right now. I'm going to do another version book in the SNO series, and then I want to go back to my archaeology series that started with the Curse of Cortez. But right now, I'm hoping this year I'll come out with 2 nonfiction books. One that I probably won't promote a great deal because they're somewhat esoteric. But the first one deals with prophecy analytics. It's the actual computer-based or analytical-based set of algorithms that I developed in the 90s that I've now given to the fictional AI in the story to help it decode how real life and prophecies line up to using mathematical correlations. So I'll be coming out and explaining how that process works and explaining why the system believes that the probabilities that we're living in, not just crazy times, dangerous times, scary times, but prophetic times, has a probability of 1.4 trillion to 1. So that one, I'm near the end of that one. I've got beta readers working on it now. I'm working on another one called Humanity and the AI Tsunami. So it deals with all of these AI issues, and I'm trying to kind of get the average consumer to be aware of all the complexities of these issues, and then look at including the job displacement, which is going to end the social displacements and the changes of social contracts. That book will also look at jobs and what do you do to retrain, to get better, to re-engineer your life. It's a survival guide for humans to get through this period. Good things next.
People can check it out. Give us your .coms as people can go out and people can follow your work, et cetera.
Facebook is Official Guy Morris Books. Mm-hmm. Instagram is Author Guy Morris. I'm on Blue Sky the most often right now as Guy Morris Books. I think I'm Guy Morris Books. Guy Morris Books. And then LinkedIn, I'm guy.b.morris.
Well, thanks, Guy, for coming on the show. We really appreciate it, and I'm sure folks are going to be, picking up the book and getting, binging all the different elements and getting up to speed on everything. It's called The Image. A quantum portal has opened, part of the SNO Chronicles, pronounced SNO. You can find it there out May 9th, 2025 by Guy Morris. Thanks for joining us on the show. Thanks to our audience for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTok and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you guys next time. And that should have us out. Great show.